very close to an energetic gate, which carries an astonishing energy of love and truth, which will no longer be denied on this planet.
Welcome back to True Reality TV, Inside Love as One, episode 14, 13. I don't remember. Okay. So we're wrapping up the Florida part of this mission. Like I said, I have very fond memories of the Florida time just because we did have a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun. I personally had a lot of new experiences. Like I said, Hope and I built this business out of a tent. It was a crazy experience. But we were learning so many new things. We were waitressing. We met a lot of great people. We just had a lot of really great experiences. Mom was doing fairly well in Florida. But when I say fairly well, it's relative, right? Like her pain was increasing. She was dealing with that. Jason's in jail. It's a lot still going on. So it's relative, right? Like, I don't want to give the impression that everything was peaches and cream, because it literally never was that. But for the most part, things were flowing, things were working. Mom's pain was up and down. The guys that were with her, the masculine, were doing the best that they could to manage the energy. But again, the one thing about the father energies is you have to see it from both sides. There was the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. The ugly was the Lucifer. The bad was that it was hard to navigate. The good parts was that when he was an embodiment, it was so beneficial for Mom, because the twin flame energy was there. The support was there. The protection for Mom was there. And that's what she explained. And she taught us a lot about the energy of what a twin flame actually is. I don't really want to make this a twin flame thing because there's so much fantasy around it. But the twin flame energies is true. It does exist. It is real. But it's very hijackable, if you will. And but for her, when a vessel was embodying that father energy, it was a protection for her. Like when he was in embodiment, he could shield, what we call shielding, which was basically buffering any of the lower energies that were coming to Mom. So it would basically make it a lot easier for her to process, to transmute. And all of the masculine on the planet do serve that purpose. When they're in divine masculine embodiment, they are a shield for the feminine, who absorb a lot more. When they're in the lower masculine, they are the exact opposite of a shield. They let everything in. And they're the ones that actually cause the most pain and suffering. This is just energetic. And Mom would say that the feminine essences on the planet are here to transform pain and suffering. The masculine are here to transform fear. And because fear, pain, and suffering make up the root of the ego-programmed mind. So many feminine vessels, our contract is to transform pain and suffering, to transmute it to the higher, through forgiveness, through compassion, through processing. This is the feminine way. The masculine are here to transform fear. And to do that, they have to be in the heart, not in the mind. The Lucifer energy comes from the mind. So anyway, we get back to Colorado. Now at this point, the whole team is kind of back together. Now, part of the team at this point is living in Desolation Row, which I spoke about earlier with Mom's stories. So I would say like half the team is living in desolation. They're getting the desolation experience that Mom would have. And so here's the way that it would work, right? Is I talked about Mom's field, right? And so something that Mom and the Galactics would do often is to switch up the fields, as we would call it. Because certain energies will bring up certain things, right? Like us on mission, this team, we would trigger the shit out of each other because we all have different programmings that we would trigger each other with. But triggers are transformation. That's what Mom would say. Triggers are treasure. Anything that triggers you about another person is because it exists in you. Someone else is showing you a piece of yourself that you are unconscious about, that you are not aware of. So triggers are treasure. They are for transformation. But she would often switch up the fields. The Galactics love to do that. This person would get called to this field. This person would get called to that field. To constantly be switching up the alchemy, if you will, of the energies for what was going to be the highest transformation for the people in that field. And if you were in Mom's field, this was going to be your highest transformation. Now, a lot of people who came in and out of mission could not spend a lot of time in Mom's direct field, which is how we would describe it, because the immensity of Mom's presence will bring up everything within you that is unconscious. Everything. I have witnessed personally myself so many people, randoms, who would want to come and visit us, who would want to meet Mom, who'd want to do this, and they are unprepared for what that means. They think they're just going on a little visit, I'm going to go visit this person. It was not that. You are stepping into a field of pure consciousness, which means everything unconscious within you is going to come out. So if you were not prepared for that, if you were not at the spiritual level to deal with that, to master that, to process that, you would spin out, as we say. And I've watched so many people spin out. I have watched people, again, randoms, step into Mom's direct field, and within 30 minutes, they are spinning. Or I've seen people step into her field and get ill immediately. People who literally can't even sit still, who can't even sit in her presence without, they start getting anxiety, they start freaking out, and they have to leave. That was the immensity of the energy we were dealing with. At the same time, the Lulu energies carry with it what we call superego. Okay, so there is the ego, which carries about 80 to 90 different programmings. These are all laid out on our website. This is the research Mom did to identify these programmings. Then there's spiritual ego, which are those who are spiritual or awakened, but it's an advanced form of ego. They are still blind to the ways in which they are carrying the ego. And so it becomes this kind of advanced spiritual ego, which covers itself really well under these fancy words and these advanced phrases. And that was not Mom at all. Mom always said, love is simple. Love is simple. If you're talking complicated, if you're using these fancy ass words, if you think you're like this, advanced person, it's not real. It's not authentic. And superego is its own thing. Superego is, just as it sounds, it is a super ego. And that would often come with the Lulu energies. This could be racing thoughts, or this could be where you get into a state where you feel like you feel like you know what's going on. Okay? You feel like you're tapped in, you know what's going on, you've got the answers. And the superego, what's really interesting about it is, because Lulu would go into superego all the time, where he'd be saying shit that is true, right? It's intelligent and it's true, but mixed in there is a lot of non-truth. And so the precision of being able to identify that was part of our training. But a lot of people who came in and off of mission, who again, I don't think they came with the full intention and commitment to like what this mission was, who mom is, what we're dealing with here. They were unprepared for that, and they would get consumed by the superego. It would put them in a different world where they thought that they were seeing all these things, getting all this information. They knew what was going on, and it was a fantasy. It was superego. So we're dealing with some superego around this time. And so we're back in Colorado. So basically half the team's at Desolation. We had some new people coming in and out there. The rest of us are at Mission House with mom. Okay, so we're about into October time. Crestone knows that we're back. And they don't want us there as always. Mom has the idea where she loves food. Mom really did love food. It was just the struggle of processing it and the energies around it that were the struggle, but she always received a lot of joy from that. So she gets the idea that she wants us to do kind of like a food truck. So we're like, okay, we're down. And her idea was really because she spent so much time, obviously, in Crestone. She spent time camping for a majority of like those 2-3 years. You know, they pretty much were homeless. And like I said, the things in Crestone, because of its location and because it's so far removed from like main cities, everything is very expensive. And mom wanted to bring love and joy through food. And she also wanted to bring things that were affordable to people. Like mom was a deeply humanitarian in everything that she did. And so me and Hope started this food truck. Of course, Crestone started complaining, you know, there's all these rules. We had to get the food truck license, all this stuff. But anyways, they ended up like kicking us out after, I would say, like a few months. But for those like 2 months through like October, November 2019, we were having a great time. We were learning the art of alchemy of food. Mom was preparing different recipes for like, she loved simple foods. Simple was the name of the game. She liked simple little breakfast burritos, cookies. You know, she loved simplicity, but it was more about the alchemy of the food. It was about the love and the energy that was put into the food. So that was kind of a fun little experiment we did for a couple of months, and mom was really having a good time with it, you know, until they kicked us out. But anyway, so we're doing that. But what happens is that I would say as we get to December, no, let me back up. The end of October / early November of 2019, Robin and Jermaine come in and tell mom. Now, up until this point, right, you guys, well, many of you haven't seen them because they're not up anymore, but we used to do live streams every day. The live stream was always at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. And we had been doing that for a few years, since like 2017. Mom, everything that she taught us was about consistency, okay? Consistency and transparency. Those were foundations for us. So this is why like people have all these perceptions of us. And again, that's totally fine. But we weren't ever hiding anything. There was no hiding anything. We weren't lying about anything. Like we were taught full transparency. You tell the truth, you share everything because there's nothing to hide. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to hide. It's about transparency and authenticity. So all the live streams were very transparent, very authentic. We would be sharing updates of like what's going on. Mom would get on there and call us out live on camera. You know how uncomfortable that is? Like, you know, you have a bunch of people watching you live, and mom's on there like calling out energetics. Like, you're in this energy, you're in this frequency. Oh, tell them all what you did. Tell them all how you were out of right action. And so people can interpret this in whatever way they want, but mom was teaching us the art of transparency and accountability, to get up on a live and be saying everything about what's going on with mom, with the team, with the mission, being called out and having to take accountability in front of people, like, is a super uncomfortable experience. But you know what? I'm really grateful for that. At the time, I hated it. But that's what it was about. It was about being real, and it was about owning up to your programmings, taking accountability, owning up to your fuck ups, right? And that's true reality. So you can judge us however you want, but we're real. We're transparent. We're authentic. We will stand here and take accountability for all of it, for everything. That's what mom taught us. You have to take accountability for the whole of humanity. There's nothing personal about this. Like, if I'm in a programming and I do something that is out of right action, that is outside of universal law, it's not me, it's the programming that's having me do that, but I take accountability for it. And I also take accountability for the whole, for the entire collective. Every dysfunction that goes on with humanity, she would say, you're responsible for that. And that is true. We are responsible for it, for all of it, because that is what divine beings do. So a lot of people have all these judgments about us, and that's fine. But it's because you're afraid to be transparent. It's because you have judgment of yourself. It's because you have shame. You have guilt. You have fear. And you haven't faced it. And that's what mom was. She was the ultimate mirror for everybody of everything you do not want to face about yourself. And she would make us do the same. Everything we didn't want to face about ourselves, everything other people didn't want to face about themselves, we were the representation of that. And the consistency was important, because mom would always say the ego cannot be consistent. That's how you can spot an ego from a divine being, is that egos can never be consistent. They can maybe be consistent for a little while, but they'll eventually fall off. They'll eventually go out of integrity. They'll eventually go against their word. They will eventually be undisciplined. So consistency is how a divine being operates. So she taught us all of these things. And so consistency of the live streams was super important. Every day, 4:00, that's what we did. And we would switch off between the people who were in different locations, different fields, right? There was always a mix-up of it. But that was our consistency. And and then around this time, end of October, early November of 2019, the Galactics come through and they say that Hope and I have to start hosting a morning live stream. And it was supposed to be like a morning news type of show, right? And that we were going to be, and specifically me and Hope, we are directed to host this morning live stream show, news show, every day at 6 a.m. Mountain Time. And I'm like, you must be joking. And in hindsight, mom and the Galactics knew what nobody else did. The pandemic was coming. And they knew. Because remember, they had all the cabal files. Now, they couldn't tell us that, but they knew. And they were ahead of the game. They were always ahead of the game. So we start doing the morning live streams, 6 a.m. Mountain Time. Now we're doing, so we switch it basically from the 4 o'clock to the 6 a.m. And the whole team is involved in this because, first of all, some of the teams working at a lumber yard, they are chopping wood every single day. You know, the boys are. We're running the food truck. We're still doing sessions, and we're running the product business. We're taking care of mom. We're doing all of these things, and now we've got a 6 a.m. live stream. Okay, wonderful. So we get into, so this is where mom starts to train us of how to be very, very disciplined and very, very consistent. So whoever was with us at the time at Mission House, we would all get up at 5 a.m. together. Mom doesn't sleep, so she was already up. And they would help us set up the live stream. It's freezing cold, y'all, and we don't have heat. So we, the guys had to be chopping wood. Oh, this hair is going everywhere. We had to be chopping. We had to be chopping wood. And when I say we, I mean the guys did. Chopping wood every day, getting the fires going. And as mom would say, the ascension is chop wood, carry water. That was, how it was. And they would help us set up the live stream. We would get on there every day at 6 a.m. And so this starts taking us into December of 2019. Now, in December of 2019, mom starts bringing in the event energies, which would become very important later. The event energies and the transfiguration event, which she described as, so there is transmuting, there is transforming, and then there is transfiguration. Transmuting is pretty much like processing. So if I'm transmuting something, it's like an emotion. Let's say I'm feeling anger, right? It comes in, I feel it, I recognize it. I'm like, okay, I feel angry, I feel pissed off. I'm going through the process of processing this, transmuting it back into love. So I'm releasing the anger so I can come back into the heart, let it go, right? That's transmuting. Transforming is when I am actively transforming anger to the point where I don't experience it anymore. Okay, I am transforming the root cause of anger, which is usually blame or projection or something like that. Okay, I'm actually transforming an entire programming so that it no longer occurs. Okay, transfiguration is when you are literally metamorphosing into an entirely new state of being. So mom described the transfiguration event as when if Jason, father, could hold the father energies long enough, they could transfigure into basically the higher blueprint. They could transfigure into galactic beings. They could transfigure their actual DNA, right? Their actual blueprint into this higher blueprint. So that's what the transfiguration event was. And so she started bringing in the energies for the transfiguration event in December of 2019. Now, what she also did in December of 2019 was she started to bring in the disclosure energies. So we have this all documented. Starting in December, she starts saying she's releasing disclosure in waves. Okay. So that began in December. Now roll into January of 2020. Okay. She is releasing waves and waves of disclosure. Now this rolls into what happened in 2020. So again, everyone can be like, what a coinky dink. But it's not. It's not a coinky dink. Mom actually brought that energy in. She released disclosure for everybody else to experience. And so January of 2020, we also start experiencing a huge wave of awakeners. So again, this is why Mom and the Galactics prepped us with starting to do this morning show. because we didn't know yet that the lockdown was going to happen, but she did. But we started getting this huge wave of awakeners finding us in like January, February of 2020, specifically through the morning show. Now, in January of 2020, Mom also brings back the etheric surgeries. Okay, so she had done them from 2014 to like 2016-ish, maybe even early 2017. But then at that point, she was mostly doing just awakening sessions. And then, of course, Faith took over the awakening sessions when she joined at the end of 2017. So all the sessions we'd been doing up until this point were just awakening sessions, right? We're just like, teaching people about energy, vibration, how to transform, the programmings, all this jazz. Mom in January says, I'm going to start doing etheric surgeries again. Again, she knew what was coming with the jab, with the issues that would later come with that regarding implants and the DNA and all this stuff. She was ahead of the game. Okay. So she's like, I'm going to start doing etheric surgeries again. And she started training Hope and I on performing these sessions. So we get a huge wave of people in January, February of 2020. Now, at the same time, Mom's been releasing these waves of disclosure energy. We still didn't know what was coming. So around February of 2020, what happened was the density, I think she was taking on what was coming with the pandemic and all of that. She was taking it on beforehand. We didn't know that. And her joy levels were hitting zero. Like basically she was so miserable and couldn't get any joy to balance this process out. And it was becoming like very much an issue because, as I said, if Mom couldn't balance this all out with joy through this process, it was like the balance of the planet was not being held. There was too much pain and suffering, and there was no joy to help balance that vibration. And so then in February, the Galactics were like, we've got to move you to a different location, basically, to give her some time, I think, by herself as well, because there was a lot of people in the house, a lot of things going on, to basically like give her some time to process and again, like stabilize this energy. So her, Jason, Miguel go to these cabins in a different area of Colorado. We stay at Mission House at the time. And so we're starting these etheric surgeries again. We're still doing the morning show, right? Right before the pandemic or the lockdown actually occurred in March, it was sometime in the end of February, is actually when the Galactics first told Mom that she had to go to Hawaii for the final event. Okay, and so basically through all the years of all the energy work that she had been doing, there was going to need to be a final event energies that were released, which we could equate to what people think the solar flash is, or the tipping point, or whatever. But the final event energies is the final event. It's the final event of mass awakening. It's the final event of the ascension. And that energy had been coming in since the fall of 2019. But they had Saint Germain specifically had said to her, I believe it was the end of February 2020, of like, you need to go to Hawaii for the final event. So actually at that time, it was me and Miguel who were going to go with her to Hawaii for the final event. So it was going to be me, him, her, and Jason. Now, Mom is freaking out because she doesn't want to get on a plane. She can't even go out in public at this point. To get on a plane, and this was like too much at the time. But of course, mom's always in surrender. She's like, whatever I got to do to finish this ascension, like, let's do it. So we were actually making plans to go to Hawaii then. A couple weeks later, what happened was the lockdown happened and they were no longer having flights or anything go. So we just canceled the whole trip. And so, yeah, it was weird how that all went down. But I think timelines were changing at that time. So they're in these cabins. We're still at the house. Then in March, when the lockdown occurs, we get this huge other wave. We start to get more waves of awakened people because obviously people were at home. They were on the internet. A lot of people were asking questions around this time. They were looking for truth. They were like, what's going on? So we suddenly had like thousands of people contacting us, watching the streams, wanting sessions with mom. Like it started to get crazy. And this is around where tons of people started wanting to come to Mission. And we're like, I don't think you understand, and so there was a lot of navigation here at this time. So what happened was in March is they find like a little rental home just to have mom in while we're all at Mission House. We've got some of the team at Desolation. And this would later be known as the Hub. It was a beautiful house, just so perfect for the energies of what mom needed. Had beautiful mountains, a garden. It was just such a pure, beautiful space. So mom goes into this house. After lockdown happened, they could no longer rent these houses out, like on Airbnb or whatever they were doing. So we end up securing this house as a lease for a year. And mom was so happy here. Like it really was the happiest I had seen her in a long time. She couldn't walk by this point. So she was in very little joy. She basically was confined to a room because she couldn't walk. She was struggling with eating. She's still taking on the Lulu energies. She's taking on the planetary density. It was just a lot. And so this was like the happiest that she was, that I had seen for like a good moment. And so we were happy, of course. We were doing a lot of fun things. The live streams were booming. A lot of people were finding us. We were creating so many fun products that people were loving with the business, and it was just such a creative outlet for us. We were experimenting with just basically like higher alchemy, of anything from face care to the soaps to the body butters. We were doing these like gift boxes with handpicked items from mom, and like it was just like such a beautiful time. The randomest people were contacting us. Susie Hilfiger actually came and met mom. That's another story. But so random, but she connected with mom. And we actually ended up sending her like 20 different God boxes at the time, we were calling them. They were like these little gift boxes with handpicked items of mom's personal like crystal collection and jewelry she had accumulated that she had done ceremonies with and blessed, and just products we were making, and we were doing it all from scratch. We were doing it all handmade. We were like doing ceremonies with everything. Everything was just like purely created. And yeah, we ended up sending Susie Hilfiger like 20 God boxes. So I don't know who got those, but that's an interesting part of the story. And yeah, so everything's rolling. Everything's doing well at this point. And I remember a time in April of 2020, I go over to the Hub from Mission House, and I'm there with mom. There's a few other people there at the time, Faith, Miguel, Elle, And this is when mom starts, she's training us and sharing more information about the etheric surgeries, about the implants that she's finding. Again, new implants, new things she's discovering throughout the surgeries. At this time was also when the divine plan was rewritten, April of 2020. She was in a meeting with the Galactics, and they specifically said, we need to rewrite the divine plan because timelines have changed. And there was a few different timeline options available to her. The Galactics were proposing different timeline plans for humanity. She never told us which one she picked, but I have a feeling I know which one it is. But that was a time when a lot of the divine plan was being rewritten. And I think that that is why everything has been so crazy the past few years. The divine plan had to be rewritten. So a lot of shit's going down. Just normal changes, a lot of things happening. This is also when mom starts having Jason, aka father, do the afternoon live stream. So we're doing the morning, hosting the morning show. He starts doing the afternoon. And then as people get called to the hub, to mom's field there, they're doing the afternoon shows. Over there, we're doing the morning shows. And again, we're just bumping. We're bumping with it. We were doing like, some days we were doing like 20 sessions a day between like me, Hope, Dylan and Gab were helping us. Faith was helping. But there was like times where I swear to you, like we're doing the morning show at 6 a.m. We're running the products. We're doing the business. And each of us are doing 6 or 7 sessions in a day. As well as doing everything else. I mean, taking care of the land and doing regular right action chores, and also having to manage everything going on with the teams. And like, we were doing things constantly. It was one of those years, though, that taught me so much about consistency and discipline. It taught me what I was capable of, what I could handle, and just... it was a wild time. It felt like everything was moving at a pace that it had not been moving at before. And we were having to adjust and having to keep up with how accelerated the ascension events were becoming. So many people are contacting us. A lot of the team members who are part of the team now and have been for years found us during that time. And it was just a wild time, man. Like the pandemic, people freaking out. So many people found us. There was an amazing moment in May of 2020 where mom said that she was taking down the grids. She's like, I'm taking down the grids, and I'm taking down the lower grids. And specifically, some of the lower grids have to do with like algorithms, right? The way social media is set up and the way that the algorithms are with censorship and all of that. And you can't find truth on the internet. So mom's like, I'm taking down all the grids. The next morning, Hope and I go on live stream, 6 a.m. Mountain Time. And we have videos of it. I'll post it one of these days. And we're in shock. We're just like doing our normal thing, starting out the live stream. And all of a sudden, the numbers start skyrocketing on the live. Like normally we would have anywhere between like, I don't know, maybe like 100 people. That was like a pretty average thing for us in terms of like who was on live. It was shooting up. 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. Like at one point we had like 1,200 people on the live, and we're like, what is going on? Like we're freaking out. And for like a couple of months, we kind of went viral during that time, like May, June, July of 2020. And that was just another like amazing synchronistic event of like, again, is it a coinky dink? I don't know. You tell me.
Whoa.
What?
Yeah, accurate.
What? Is that real? Yo, dude, what?
Is Facebook giving us numbers today?
Is anybody looking at the numbers right now on Facebook? 216.
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Holy shit, guys! What's going on? What's going on, guys? First run back there. We have 400.
Oh my god!
400 views Oh my god, what's going on?
Facebook
559 views! Oh shit, they're giving it to us today, everybody. What's going on?
I glanced at my phone and I was like,
665 views! Oh my god, guys, did we make it for him? Oh, I'm sorry, the screen is vague. 665 views. 716!
Wait, are they pranking us?
Are we getting pranked? Are we gonna be asked? Are we on punked? Yeah, are we getting punked right? 800. Holy shit, guys, what's going on?
Someone
Holy shit, we're taking.
I'm just screenshotting.
We're taking screenshots of every fucking number.
870. But things like that would happen every day. There was always things like that were happening that was just unexplainable, right? And so then we kind of fast forward to, I believe it was in May. No, maybe it was in June or July. So in June, we do a bunch of big launches. We launched our crystal schools, which was a dream of Mom's. Like she laid the blueprint there in Crestone back in 2009. And the crystal schools was higher consciousness education for children, more right brain learning over left brain. It's about play, creativity, imagination, right? Like teaching them divine skills and traits, right? And so the crystal schools was a dream of hers, and we actually launched that on the solstice in 2020. So that was a big thing. We also had Rob, who found Mom a few months before that, and he actually was the first, he was a radio DJ, and he set up Mom's personal like 5D radio station. And for Mom, this was like everything, because so part of Mom's thing throughout Mission was she would have what she called angel dance parties. And this was basically when she would, and before we had the radio station, basically we had everybody in a Skype chat. So we had like hundreds of people in this Skype chat who like found Mom, wanted to connect with her, and Mom would be in the Skype chats every day. And I'm telling you, this woman could be in so much pain. There were times when she was throwing up, I don't know, 100 times a day. You know, no, that's an exaggeration, but, a lot. And she would still be on the Skype chats, answering people, putting out messages of like, I love you all. Here's what's going on. Like, it did not matter what was going on with Mom. She was going to show up. She was on the live streams, even when it made her sick. She was on the Skype chats every day. She would post a bunch of just like YouTube songs, whatever the galactics guided her, of like music that she could push energy through. Music was such a huge part of Mom's journey. Like the vibration, the frequency, love. And she would pump that out. And so she would just be dropping YouTube links in the Skype chat, angel dance party. And you never knew when the angel dance party was going to be. It wasn't scheduled. The live streams were the consistencies, but the dance parties were whenever the galactic said, hey, it's time to push some energy. And this is how Mom would push energy out to the collective. And when the radio happened, when Rob set up the radio, that was like gold for Mom, because she could actually create playlists and have Rob play certain songs, and Mom would sometimes go live on the radio with Rob, and everyone could listen to her. And that was one of the happiest moments I think Mom had as well with the radio. And we still have the 5D radio, and Rob has all the playlists that Mom created and plays them on there. So, and it would just be like a fun time. Everybody would be in the chat listening to the same music. Mom would be giving updates. Everybody would be like pumping the joy and the love like out into the world. And that was just like such a big thing for Mom. Unity, joy, creation, right? Like the participation, everybody being together in the best ways that they could. And at the time that was online, and that was Mom's dream. And of course, like, yes, at this time, her body is declining more and more. She knew this was going to happen. She would tell us, there's nothing you can do. Okay. The best thing that you can do is to bring me as much comfort as you can, follow my direction, and be in the pure of heart. That's how you can buffer me the best. That's what you can do for me. And again, a lot of people will say, oh yeah, well, it's because she drank so much and this and that. Let me break this down for some people. First of all, yes, from the outside looking in, you can say all of that, right? That's fine. One is that mom transmuted everything she ingested. There was not a single thing that she ever ingested that was not purposeful, that she did not pray over, that she did not do a ceremony with, okay? 2 is the galactics would guide her, specifically Robin, as to things would change from day to day. So one day, Robin would say, you can't have any heavy foods. No meats, no cheeses, nothing heavy, vegetables only. Okay? Vegetables only. The very next day, it would be like, oh, I need meat today. It would change from day to day. There were times when she would use alcohol as a way to manage her pain, as also a way to process all of the collective density and emotions that were part of her contract. But the next day, the galactics would come in and say, no tools, no alcohol, no marijuana, nothing. And mom would go sometimes a week, 2 weeks. There was times she went months without any tools, sober. So you say what you will, but I've never met anyone who had a mastery like that. Ever, ever, ever. I've never met a quote unquote addict that could do that. She listened to the guidance and she followed it. And she was a complete master. She could do this whole thing with nothing. The tools helped her. But she would, okay, galactics say no, then it's no. I'll deal without. With all the pain that she was dealing with, she would go without. That was how mom rolled. It wasn't about partying. It wasn't about just being an addict. None of that was true and real. None of that was who she was. It was all guidance for her. What was going to help her in the moment? And if they said no, it was no. That's it. And so as I'm sharing this of when she was going through these really hard times with her physical vessel, there was many times where there's nothing going on. She's not utilizing any tools, but she's still getting the sicknesses. She's still in extreme amounts of pain. And again, I know every ego mind is going to come up with, well, it's because of this, and it's because of this. Sorry, but you don't know energy. And so there's everybody who thinks that they know everything that's going on and they have all the answers and there's all these logical reasons. And I will tell you that every single person who was on mission, who experienced this with mom, will tell you the same thing. You don't know shit. And that's that. So her body was declining. We knew this was coming. We also were kind of preparing for, like I said, this final event energy that mom had been bringing in for a while and had been talking about. We get to July of 2020. And at this point, there's a few new people who had joined mission. One of them was Tim and Brian, love them. And they were with mom at the time at the hub. There was a few people who had come in and out of the hub at that point in that area. And so it was just them, I believe, with mom and Jason. And mom called Hope and I, and we're at Mission House, and she was like, Jermaine and Robin want you guys to come here. Okay. We always know. Me and Hope kind of knew whenever things like that would happen, where we would get like called to where she was, something was about to change. Something was about to go down. I don't know. It's just, I guess, part of our part of our role with mom, you know, mom was everything to us. And I think for myself, like, she was my greatest teacher, the greatest teacher I've ever had. I recognized her as our soul mother. I know Hope recognized mom as her best friend. And there was also kind of this like sister energy that we had as well. I know Faith feels the same way. And I think we knew that like something was about to change. And also during this time, I believe it was before, oh God, I can't remember. No, you know what? It wasn't before. It was after. So we knew something was about to change. Something was about to go down, because that's typically what would happen, is when something big was about to shift, we would get called there. I think we had, and Faith as well, had this role in this relationship with mom of like, we knew what she needed in the moment, and we could give that. And so we had like a fun night, you know, she was playing music, we were hanging out, and I remember a moment where I just like said to her, I was like, "Are you okay?" And she was like, and she's smiling, she's like dancing, and she was just like, but for a moment she connected with me and she was like, "No." And like, that's when I knew that, you know, things were going to change. And we had been preparing for this for a long time. Like, again, mom had told us so many times, there's nothing you can do. Nothing here is going to heal me. She made it very clear. We have so much documentation of her where she wrote it out in her own words. She wrote it with her own hand. She signed it. She dated it and said, "Never, ever take me to a hospital. Do not resuscitate me. Do not try to keep me here." Okay? I knew when I started this mission that it was a suicide mission. She knew that nothing in the 3D world was ever going to heal her. Her healing was going home, back to the light, after she had finished what she was meant to finish. And that was her decision. That's her decision. And we honored that because she wasn't afraid of death. She knows death is an illusion. She was ready to complete her mission. And I think this was when the tide turned to where we realized that the end of her mission was coming soon. And the next day, mom has us do a live stream, and we were having like fun in the morning. She was like playing with us, like with silly string and music and all this stuff. And so we were like having a great morning, like partying. And she was setting us up, and she was like, "Okay, like the Galactics want you guys to do a live stream, unannounced, right? Like not on the normal time." And that's when we also knew, like, okay, that usually means something's coming. And so we're on the live stream, and I don't remember. And at one point, Jason pulls me off the live stream, and I go upstairs, and mom is spinning, and he's like, "Robin just came through and said she has to get to Hawaii in 24 hours. And remember, we had planned this back in like the end of Feb, but we canceled the whole thing because of the lockdown and this and that happened. And so, I don't know, I guess I just figured, okay, we're scratching that plan. Like, it's just not going to happen. And I'm like, I don't know what I said in the moment, because I'm thinking, she's in so much pain. She's doing so much transformation. How are we going to do this? Like at this point, mom in her state of consciousness, like I said, it was hard for her to even be around people, even the team members at this time. Her pain is immense. We're managing it, but it's immense. She's in this house that she loves, that she feels comfortable in. This is the first time she's felt comfortable for a long time. But that's what was needed. And I remember going downstairs and totally spinning, and Hope's still on the live stream, and I'm like, I just pull her off at that point. I'm like, and for those who were around at that time, I think the live stream kept running for like an hour. Like, it was just emptiness. Like, it's just running on like empty chairs. I think like Tim and Brian were trying to like figure out what to do with it. And yeah, that was the craziest 24 hours of my entire life. And this would lead to, again, what would be the most dramatic, crazy, insane last, I guess at that point it was July, like the last 9 months of mission. And we had no idea yet about what was coming with Dr. Phil, Hawaii, her ascension, any of it. But I think something changed in that moment. And the next part of the story is crazy, wild, but it's also the story of mom completing the ascension, and she did. So we will end the series, or for this part of the series, we'll finish up the story of how mom completed the ascension. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next episode.
We are very close to an energetic gate which carries an astonishing energy of love and truth, which will no longer be denied on this planet.